One of the things that Carl Jung said that I thought was really interesting when he was talking about the Oedipal situation in families, I never forgot this. So the Oedipal situation, roughly speaking, is when, I'll lay out the classic story, is when a child is seriously overprotected, usually a male child by his mother. Now the reverse can be the case, and it can be a female child by the mother and all of that, but I'll just talk about the classic case to begin with. Now, what Freud observed was that there were usually not very good boundaries in families like that. And so the relationship between the husband and the wife was either strained or non-existent. And the wife would often turn to the child to be what she isn't getting from the husband. And so there's a great South Park episode about this. A wonderful South Park episode where I don't remember, that horrible little guy is that's him, yeah. And his mother brings in the dog whisperer to train him, and it's a brilliant episode. If you want to learn about the Freudian Oedipal situation, you watch that, you've got it down cold, because she brings in this expert who then she wants to have an affair with, so that's a boundary issue. And he basically separates her son from him and imposes the same discipline on him that he would impose on a bad dog. Although he also trains the dog's owners all the time, because maybe it's not the dog, maybe it's the owner. There's a horse whisperer movie too about the original horse whisperer that does a beautiful job of laying that out too, because he's very good at fixing problem horses and unbelievably good at diagnosing psychopathology on the part of the owner. He's got a gift for it. But anyways, what happens in the South Park episode is that the dog whisperer gets Cartman, straightened out. And he starts like dressing properly and doing his homework, and the mother is pursuing an affair with the dog whisperer, but he's professional. He keeps his distance, like he keeps boundaries around him. And then he leaves, and then the first thing that she does when he leaves is bribe Cartman basically out of doing his homework so that he can accompany her to, I don't know, a fast food restaurant or something like that. And so the reason she does that is because she's lonesome and doesn't have anybody else around, and maybe she's also deeply, deeply, deeply terrified that if she helps that boy grow up, he will leave and she'll have nothing. And so mothers who don't have something, say, outside their infants, not merely their children, are more likely to fall into that. And it's no wonder, you got to think that through. And lots of women most women really fall in love with their babies, And so even if they start growing into larger children, that can be threatening, because, when the infant turns into a toddler, the infant is dead. The toddler is there now. And you can radically interfere with that process. That happens all the time. That's the classic Freudian Oedipal nightmare. And that episode is brilliant. It's bloody brilliant. It just nails it. And some of you have been in my personality class and watched Crumb, the documentary Crumb. And that's another staggering exposition of exactly that kind of pathology. Anyways, one of the things Jung pointed out, so I knew this guy once who had a mother who basically was trying that trick, and she was very smart and had lots of tricks up her sleeves, and there's just no way he was going to go for it. He rebelled at every possible moment, and he basically became, I would say, somewhat hyper-masculine in response, which is an interesting lesson with regards to the hyper-masculinity that boys often develop if they're raised by single mothers, because they tend to go one of two ways. And he just fought her at every step of the way, and it didn't happen. But one of the things Jung said, which I loved, and you can really see this in the Crumb documentary, is that the Oedipal mother basically entices the child. Says, look, here's the deal. You don't have to do anything, but you don't get to leave. But if you don't leave and you don't do these difficult things, then I'll take care of you. And the child has a choice all the way along there. I mean, obviously, he's outclassed in some sense, but it's not as obvious as you'd think. Little kids are tough, and they make decisions all the time. And so Jung thought about it more as a conspiracy than as something imposed on the child by the mother. And I really like, it's actually a conspiracy between mother, father, and child, actually. And I think that's a good way of looking at it, even though it's really rough, because, should you hold the child responsible? Well, yes, but judiciously and not completely, because then if you deal with someone like that as an adult, and they're trying to escape from it, you have to go all the way back and figure out how the hell it happened, and then they have to adjust. They have to figure out where they opened the door, like inviting a vampire in, because they can't come in unless you invite them in, So don't invite them in. because once they're in, they're really hard to get rid of, and they'll take all your blood. So that's a cautionary tale. So anyways, Pinocchio doesn't know any better, and he's got the egotism of, of youth, and he's offered the easy way to success, which is exactly what the fox tells him, and off they go to see Stromboli. So this is the song. I'm not going to read it all. It's great to be a celebrity in actor's life for me. You sleep till after 2, you promenade a big cigar, you tour the world in a private car, you dine on chicken and caviar, an actor's life for me. So it's all this idea of wealth and public exposure and zero attention whatsoever to anything regarding responsibility or discipline or learning. And so it's a dual attraction, right? You get everything you want and you don't have to do anything. Jeez, what a deal. And so that's what the actor represents. It's a liar, fundamentally. It's someone who's acting out a deception. They're a persona in the Jungian sense. So the persona is the mask you wear in public, that you might even think you are, but you're not. It's this mask, and that's the actor, that's the persona. So the fox and the cat are inviting the puppet to only become a persona. And that's, see, for Jung, you start as a persona. And then when you start to investigate the parts of you that don't really fit in that persona, that would be the shadow, then you start understanding who you really are. And that's shocking, because the persona contains everything, roughly speaking, that you think is good, and maybe even that your immediate culture thinks is good. And then the shadow contains everything that's not part of that. And some of that's really bad. But some of it is good disguised as bad, and you can't break out of the persona and transcend it until you incorporate a lot of what's in the shadow. And so, for example, if you're an extraordinarily compassionate person, let's say, 98th percentile will say, you're going to be sacrificing yourself to other people all the time. And there are people who will find that extraordinarily endearing. And it will be under some circumstances, but the problem is that you will sacrifice yourself. And that's a really bad attitude to have, for example, towards adult males. It's a great thing for infants, but for adult males, it is the wrong approach. And so you will get taken advantage of continually by people who are looking for someone like you until you grow some teeth. And you'll think, no, that's the opposite of compassion. Being able to bite hard is the opposite of compassion, which it is. And so you'll have that pushed into the predator category. I'm not doing that. I'm not getting angry. I don't like conflict. It's like until you bring that out of the depths and put it on so you can use it, you're going to be in trouble. And that's kind of Nietzsche's idea of the revaluation of good and evil, right? You have a sense of what's good and a sense of what isn't with your conscience, but it's not very smart. It's got things in the wrong boxes. And a lot of the things that, even nature itself, a lot of the things that you accept as untrammeled goods, like compassion, let's say, have a very dark side, first of all, and second, are not enough to get you through life. You need the opposite virtues too. And so you have to develop them. And so you get outside the persona to do that. But anyways,